You have probably held a spear in a video game. You have probably watched a movie where someone fights something bigger than them and wins. It felt exciting. It felt simple. But somewhere around 40,000 years ago, a group of humans stood in front of an animal that weighed as much as a city bus, covered in fur, armed with tusks longer than a grown man, and they decided to kill it. Not with guns, not with armor, with sharpened sticks and their own bodies. How did that ever work? The woolly mammoth was not a slow, dumb target waiting to be speared. It was an apex animal. It could crush a human skull with a single step. It could gore a body in half with one swing of its tusks. A single adult mammoth could weigh over 6 tons. A human, by comparison, weighed maybe 70 kilograms. That is not a fair fight. That was never supposed to be a fair fight. And that is exactly where the real story begins. Here is the first layer most people never think about. Ancient humans did not fight mammoths the way movies show it. There was no lone hero charging in with a spear raised overhead. Hunting a mammoth was closer to running a military operation than a duel. It required planning, timing, terrain knowledge, and total group coordination. One mistake, one hunter moving too early, and the entire group could die in seconds. So how did it actually work? Peel back the surface and you find something remarkable. Early humans were not trying to overpower mammoths with strength. They were trying to outthink them. Archaeological sites across Europe, Siberia, and North America show mammoth bones arranged in patterns that suggest something chilling and brilliant at the same time. Humans were using the landscape itself as a weapon. At sites like Kraków-Spadzista in Poland, researchers have uncovered dense concentrations of mammoth bones that suggest hunters funneled animals toward natural traps. Ravines, bogs, narrow valleys. A mammoth's greatest strength, its size, became a liability the moment its feet sank into soft, wet ground. Once trapped, the animal could not maneuver. That is when the spears came out. But even then, humans were not relying on brute force. Spear tips recovered from sites in France and Russia show something specific. They were designed to be thrown or thrust into soft tissue, not bone. Hunters targeted the underside of the animal, the stomach, the groin, areas without thick hide or heavy fat layers. A wound there would not kill instantly. But it did not need to. It needed to weaken. Blood loss. Exhaustion. Time became the real weapon. Here is where it gets even more interesting. Some researchers, including archaeologist Gary Haynes, who has spent decades studying mammoth kill sites, argue that many early humans were not always hunting healthy adult mammoths at all. They were opportunistic. Old animals. Sick animals. Animals already stuck in mud or weakened by disease. Why fight fair when you do not have to? This is the twist nobody tells you in the dramatic version of the story. Ancient humans were not warriors charging into danger for glory. They were engineers of probability. They stacked every possible advantage in their favor before ever throwing a single spear. Group communication. Fire, used to control an animal's movement and direction. Coordinated timing, so multiple hunters struck from different angles at once, splitting the mammoth's attention and reducing its ability to retaliate against any single person. And once a mammoth was down, the operation was not over. It was just beginning. A single mammoth could feed dozens of people for weeks. Its bones were not waste. They became tools, weapons, and even housing. At sites in Ukraine, archaeologists have discovered dwellings built almost entirely from mammoth bones, stacked and arranged with clear structural intention. Tusks were shaped into digging implements. Skin became shelter and clothing capable of surviving brutal Ice Age winters. Here's the part that changes how you see this entirely. Hunting a mammoth was not just about food. It was survival infrastructure. One successful hunt could determine whether an entire group survived the coming winter or did not. That pressure shaped everything. It shaped how early humans communicated with each other. It shaped how they organized socially, because a hunt like this required trust between people who had to rely completely on someone else's timing and courage. It shaped how they thought about risk, because the difference between a brilliant plan and a fatal one could be a single miscalculated step. Some scientists believe this kind of high-stakes cooperative hunting may have even influenced the development of early human language. You cannot coordinate a mammoth trap with grunts and gestures alone. You need shared meaning. You need a plan everyone understands before a single spear leaves anyone's hand. Complex communication was not a luxury here. It was survival equipment, just like the spear itself. And this raises an uncomfortable question. Were mammoths hunted into extinction, or were they already vanishing from a warming world, with humans simply finishing what the changing climate started? Researchers are still divided. Climate change was reshaping the mammoth's habitat at the end of the last ice age, shrinking the grasslands they depended on. Human hunting pressure may have arrived at the exact moment the species was already vulnerable, tipping a struggling population into collapse. It was not one villain. It was two forces converging at the worst possible time for a giant that once seemed untouchable. Think about that the next time you imagine yourself in a video game, sword raised, facing down something massive and roaring. The real version of that fight never happened in a single dramatic moment. It happened over generations, built from failed attempts, dead hunters, hard lessons, and slowly refined knowledge passed down by people who understood something we often forget today. The most dangerous thing in the room was never the size of the animal. It was the intelligence standing quietly across from it, already thinking 3 steps ahead. You have probably held a spear in a video game. You have probably imagined charging at something massive and winning through strength alone. But the real story was never about strength. It was about a group of humans who looked at an animal that could kill them in an instant, and instead of testing their muscles against it, they tested their minds, and won.